You know, in this business, reporters often follow the mob. I mean, the majority, either afraid to think for themselves or worried over the negative reaction a minority opinion might bring. And one of the most glaring examples of that was the Michael Jackson trial for alleged child molesting. When I told you all that I thought he was being framed, that his accusers were in it for the money, and then bet my mustache that he would be acquitted, I got more hate mail than on any issue ever except immigration. But he's free. I still have my mustache, and the lynch mob on the other side of that verdict quickly changed the subject. My next guest is going to remind them all how wrong they were. She's Aphrodite Jones, and she's just written The Michael Jackson Conspiracy. Also with us, brother Craig, who spoke with Michael's PR rep, Ramon Bain. Today, Craig, I'm going to get to you in a sec. Aphrodite, it was amazing how everyone had this guy convicted. Everybody. But as I recall, so did you.
So did I. I came on the show with you and had an argument with you. You said Sneddon could convict him, saying what?
Sneddon, the district attorney in Santa Barbara.
Right. You said there's nothing there. This is a witch hunt, and I argued with you because I had a preconceived, already set notion, as many people in the media did, which was based on the previous settlement. If this man settled, he must be guilty. There's no, Tom Mesereau came forward to me afterwards.
His defense attorney?
His defense attorney, and said, the settlement that Michael Jackson made with Jordy Chandler,
the original victim.
At the time, Jackson had $200 million coming in, every word sideways. He was looking at $1 billion coming down the pike. He wasn't $20 million to him, everything's relative. He was given bad advice to even go with that settlement. As far as we can see, this trial was a complete media setup along with the prosecution to say, let's put this guy behind bars.
It was all because he's so freaky, quote unquote.
But how? If you've seen what has happened in that courtroom, and you build it, you actually wrote a column this weekend saying this trial must end.
Yeah.
Stop this. This is ridiculous. These charges are not to be taken seriously. Why did you feel the need to write that column, Roger, on your FoxNews.com spot?
Well, I have to say that on Friday, Thursday was bad enough, but Friday, the cross-examination of the mother of this accuser in this case was so devastating, and not just because she's lied a lot and admitted to it, and she admitted to a lot of lying on the stand on Friday, but also it's pretty clear that she's mentally ill in some way. And what's happening, what seems clear to us in the courtroom is that when she first starts testifying, she's very sedate, and as time goes by and possibly medication wears off, she becomes crazier and crazier, and you hear people in the courtroom saying, "Here it comes," where she sort of slips after a couple of hours and loses control and becomes very emotional.
Now, hold on for a second, Roger. The Jacko haters would say this is the very type of family he would abuse and take advantage of, go for the crazy ones. The problem is it's not consistent in the stories that she's telling, and it looks much more like she's falling apart on the cross, as if she has been making things up.
This is going to be interesting on the part of the district attorney. Is he going to turn around and prosecute his own witnesses for lying on the stand?
This is a very important question, by the way. That's a very key question.
And we've had a lot of that. We've had a lot of people admit, one woman who used to work at Neverland actually said on the stand, she said, well, okay, I lied about everything. We have not heard...
There's no consequence now in the California judicial system if you get caught lying or perjuring yourself in proceedings. There's no consequence whatsoever?
Well, of course
the media being what it is, nobody dared ask Sneddon before that, are you prepared to charge the family if they're lying?
Right.
Even before the proceedings, because anyone looking over these papers when they were filed, it was very suspicious from the get-go.
But it's certainly, the minute the gag order is lifted, which the case, presumably when the case will be over, that will probably be the first question that's asked. But it's a very peculiar case because you can't ask any questions and you can't interview anybody, although it seems a real mistake was made. Because, the Santa Barbara District Attorney has been waiting since 1993 to get someone in here that they can use to convict Michael Jackson. And I think this was the wrong group of people to do it with.
Well, and also you have to wonder, what is the repercussions of a judicial system where you can have a prosecutor going through a grand jury, bringing these charges in like this, dragging this name, Michael Jackson, through the mud like this, the ridicule of an entire media industrial complex as it's been for month after month after month, people assuming he did it, people saying, well, if somebody in court is saying it, it must be true. Where does he go to get his good name back? Or is he just now such damaged goods? Is he forever just going to be playing like the EU company? But it's been so egregious, the missteps, the false claims, the perjuries out there. It is a court gone crazy. And I'm very concerned that this is going to continue. Clinton started it, yeah. You can go and say anything in court. I give you permission now to perjure yourself and lie and point fingers and mock, and there's no consequence at all. Why not? Have a circus of it. If they're going to do that to us, if they're going to do that to citizens of this country, we should do it back at them. That is what's at stake here, and I don't know why other people are not jumping all over this. The integrity of the court system is at stake with this. What is going to be done to those who have perjured themselves in this case? What is going to be done out there, California? Wake up! I mean, it's horrifying to think what is going to happen to our judicial system if you can go in there and lie and point fingers and saying all these terrible things, and it didn't happen. And you're joking and you're laughing and you're plotting and you're shopping and...
Talk to you about that, because that trial in 2005 where he had been accused of child molestation and he was found not guilty of that. But do you think that took a lasting toll on him?
Oh my goodness, Meredith, without question. It took a toll on me, and I am just trying to recover. I think hopefully now I am. I know that Michael was feeling that he is now recovering from that.
Now I want to move on, folks, to the professional rebirth of Michael Jackson.
The pop star is making a comeback. He'll play the O2 Arena in London this summer, his first tour here in almost 12 years.
The shows will take place this summer. They'll be the only dates anywhere in the world. Organisers are keen to keep tickets as affordable as possible, and it's estimated he could earn more than £50 million. The money, of course, is a big factor for Jackson, who has faced financial ruin after that famous court case which crippled his career.
Now, our exclusive interview with Michael Jackson, who turns 50 today. Our correspondent for all things cultural, Chris Connolly, spoke to the pop icon on the phone about the ups and downs of his life, career, his future. And Chris, I hear it was a surprising conversation. Do tell.
Facing a personal milestone that finds many people looking back, Jackson is focused on the future, which he thinks is brighter than ever. As you look back on your career, Michael, what would you have done differently?
Looking forward to doing a lot of great things, but that's hard. I think the best is yet to come, in my true humble opinion.
Well, that would take some doing.
This is it. This will be it. This is it. And when I say this is it, it really means this is it. Because,
Good evening. Every American generation has its icons in the world of entertainment. Michael Jackson has been one of the best-known stars on this planet for the last several decades. On this night, when we were preparing a remembrance of Farrah Fawcett, suddenly word arrived from Southern California that Jackson had been rushed to the hospital. There were grave reports about his condition. And now this, confirmation tonight that he has died. A lot will be said about Michael Jackson as we learn more about this story.
Now to the latest in the trial of Michael Jackson's doctor accused of giving Jackson a final fatal dose of sedatives. Dr. Conrad Murray appeared before the judge on Monday and asked the court not to revoke his medical license. Right after, Mike Von Frem sat down for an exclusive interview with Murray's lawyer.
Justice for Michael! In the court of public opinion, fans have already convicted Dr. Conrad Murray of involuntary manslaughter for Michael Jackson's death. Justice for Michael! It was a spectacle that Jackson himself might have appreciated. Fans even flew a banner over the courthouse while cheering the arrival of the pop star's family. But inside the court, the doctor managed to hang on to his license to practice medicine.
Dr. Murray is not guilty of causing the death of Michael Jackson, period.
And during an exclusive interview with Good Morning America, his defense lawyer, Ed Chernoff, says the LA police may have botched the entire investigation.
A conclusion was made, and the investigation was conducted in order to back it up.
You saying the police are a little too quick to have blamed your client?
I think it was easy. I do think it was easy.
The just-released coroner's report says Murray gave Jackson a dose of propofol normally used in surgery to help him sleep. Police say Murray admits to giving Jackson the drug, but the doctor says nothing he did should have killed the pop star.
It should not be administered at home. It should not be administered at home even by a doctor who's experienced.
Bruce Goldberger is a professor of toxicology at the University of Florida.
It needs to be administered in a clinic or at a hospital where respiration can be supported and where one could be treated if there's an acute reaction to the drug.
So if you use propofol any place besides a hospital or surgical setting, what, you're rolling the dice?
It's Russian roulette, really. There's a good chance that eventually you're going to lose.
According to police, Murray said that by the day Jackson died, he'd been giving Jackson propofol nearly every night for 6 weeks, but said he'd been trying to wean Jackson off of it. According to court documents, Murray laid out a timeline of what happened on that final day, describing a long night of giving drug after drug to one of the most famous entertainers ever, all just to help him get some sleep. That timeline begins with a dose of Valium, also known as diazepam, at 1:30 a.m., which didn't work. Then at 2 a.m., he gave Jackson an anxiety drug called lorazepam, but Jackson was still awake. At 3 a.m., a sedative called midazolam, still nothing. At 5 a.m., more of the anxiety drug. Then at 7:30 a.m., more of the sedative. But Jackson still wasn't sleeping, and Murray said his famous patient was specifically asking for propofol. Some 9 hours after Jackson first went to bed at 10:40 a.m., Dr. Murray gave in and administered 25 milligrams of propofol, a fairly small dose, to Jackson through an IV drip. But investigators say Dr. Murray's story doesn't add up, that the LA County Coroner's Office found concentrations of propofol in Jackson's blood that suggest Dr. Murray gave a lot more propofol to Jackson than the doctor has admitted.
The amount of propofol in the blood of Michael Jackson collected at autopsy is a significant amount of propofol.
Dateline has learned the results of the coroner's tests for propofol in Jackson's blood and shared them with toxicology professor Bruce Goldberger.
It is the amount that you would expect in someone under propofol anesthesia, someone who is unconscious with their respiratory functions supported by mechanical means.
Suggesting that Dr. Murray's story to the police isn't supported by the scientific evidence?
The toxicological evidence from the coroner's office does not support Dr. Murray's statements of drug administration that early morning of Michael Jackson's death.
And that's not the only statement of Murray's that's being called into question. Investigators say Murray told them that shortly after he gave Jackson the propofol, around 10:50 a.m., Murray left Jackson for about 2 minutes to go to the bathroom. When he returned, he saw that Jackson wasn't breathing and began administering CPR. But Dr. Murray's cell phone records tell a very different story, according to the LAPD. They show that during the time that Murray says he was monitoring Jackson, essential for someone under the influence of propofol, the doctor was on the phone, calling a friend, his medical office, and his patient, Bob Russell. Murray got Russell's voicemail. We've obtained the message he left.
This is Dr. Murray from Bob. Hi, how are you? Sorry I missed you. Just wanted to talk to you about your results of ECP. You did quite well on the study.
Listening to the message, Dr. Murray doesn't sound like a man who is dealing with a dying patient. He sounds subdued.
Yeah, he did sound subdued.
We would love to continue to see you as a patient, even though I may have to be absent from my practice because of an overseas sabbatical.
I would certainly argue that the voice of Dr. Murray on your voicemail is too calm and composed for someone who had already gone through what he says he went through when Mr. Jackson died.
Documents reveal at 11:07 a.m., Murray makes a 1-minute call to his personal assistant. 11:18, Murray makes a 32-minute call to his Las Vegas office. 11:49, Murray makes a 3-minute call to one of his cardiology patients. 11:51, Murray makes a call of unspecified length to Sade Anding, a Houston cocktail waitress he was dating. Anding testified that she was on the phone with him when she realized he wasn't listening to her anymore. She said she heard a noise in the background and then a mumbling of voices, but Murray never responded to her after that point. 12:12, Murray makes a 1-minute call to Michael Jackson's personal assistant. Michael Amir Williams says Murray told him Jackson had a, quote, bad reaction, like something was going on, unquote. Williams subsequently called Alberto Alvarez, Jackson's bodyguard, and asked him to see what was going on. It was Alvarez who made the 911 call at 12:21 p.m.
Murray's attorney disputes the timeline, calling it police theory. Just how closely Murray was paying attention to Jackson could become an issue at trial. Anesthesiologists are pretty much unanimous in saying that propofol should never be given outside a hospital or surgical setting because patients require close and constant monitoring. Despite that, Dr. Murray admitted giving Jackson propofol with almost no safeguards in place. Jackson was hooked up, sources say, to a pulse oximeter, but not to a heart or blood pressure monitor. There was also no defibrillator available to restart Jackson's heart. Police did find a disposable bag valve device like this one that could have been used to pump air into Jackson's lungs at the scene. Was it Murray's, or did it belong to paramedics? Investigators can't say for sure, and if there is a trial, Murray could claim that the device was his.
There's been a lot of discussion regarding propofol, how exactly to use it, and is it considered safe in any setting except a hospital or a medical setting. So I decided pictures are worth 1,000 words. I'm going to take you inside my operating room to show you firsthand what really happens.
We have to monitor his EKG, we have to monitor his end-tidal CO2, we have to make sure that he's breathing, we have to see his saturation, we have to make sure he's ventilating.
So that's all typical stuff anytime you use these
Standard
medications.
of care, yes.
Okay, so the propofol.
We're going to start infusing this. You're going to get a little sleepy, Vincent. Okay, give me some good deep breaths.
So
what? You see his eyes is closed.
So his eyes closed, and what else are you
Now,
looking
we'll look
for?
up here. He stopped breathing. So this is watching his end-tidal CO2, and he's not breathing anymore, and my wonderful nest is it's going to help him breathe.
So take a look over here. All the breathing right now is taking place with this bag and this mask. From that medication, he wouldn't be able to breathe on his own without those things. Well, there you can see part of the problem. Just with that much propofol there, he stopped breathing, and he's going to need a breathing tube.
Easy?
Easy. Let me ask you this. When we talk about his defense, one of the defenses that people think the defense will offer here is suicide, that Michael Jackson might have ingested the propofol himself. How do you see that playing out in this trial? How does the defense need to make that argument? Because at the same time, this was Michael Jackson's doctor. How did he get that propofol if he gave it to himself?
Right, and I think that the defense is already making statements that we know that they're going to say that while the doctor wasn't looking, Michael Jackson was swallowing medicine that was not prescribed to him, and that he basically was a drug addict and he was just gulping this stuff without the doctor's knowledge or consent. I think that they're also going to try to show that Michael is out of control, and I'll bet that they're going to try to bring in his past, his conduct, or the accusations with respect to the molestation charges, to try to make the jury not like him and think that he was just a total mess and he was gulping down the medicine. But be that as it may, that's not going to excuse him administering drugs that he shouldn't have been administering, the amount of drugs or the way that it was used. I don't know how they overcome that.
Okay, we know that Michael Jackson died with a drug cocktail in his body that was strong enough to knock over a horse. And yet, watching this movie, I was astounded at how coordinated this 50-year-old man was, how lucid, how together. I just couldn't match those two images of the drugs found in his system and all the stuff that we're seeing right here. They found propofol, a surgical knockout drug, lorazepam, lidocaine, midazolam, Valium. That was in his system. This was right when he was rehearsing. He had come home from a rehearsal. How is it that a man, 50-year-old man, is able to act like that when he goes home and he puts these drugs in his system? I don't get it. Do you have any explanation?
Michael blatantly told me that they were going to murder him.
And he said it repeatedly. And the first time, of course, when he said it, I just didn't know what to think. I didn't believe him. Because, after all, he's Michael Jackson. And you're the biggest thing on this earth. Who's going to kill you? Nobody. And if they do, how are they going to get away with it? And the more he went into detail of explaining.
I thought it was interesting when you wrote the blog the day after Michael Jackson's death. You titled the blog, He Knew. What did he know? When I was watching the footage of the ambulance backing out of the driveway, and I went back to this conversation that I had with him at Neverland in the library. We were sitting by the fire, and he was telling me that he was afraid that he was going to end up like my father. You know, he was always asking me about when he died and how it happened and when it happened and where. And Michael was always asking you about your father. Yes. And he said, I feel like I'm going to end up the same way. And did you say why? Yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? And I don't understand. Down to the play-by-play incident was identical.
Isn't it eerie how close this is to Elvis as far as the death is concerned?
I think that it's a lot closer to Elvis in every regard. I met Elvis, Jerry Weintraub, mutual manager. I investigated the facts and circumstances surrounding the death of Elvis. I knew the enablers in Elvis's case. Helped get Dr. Nicopoulos's medical license suspended. It is exactly the same story.
It's all in the book starting over. What he told me, how he told me, and everything happened. And these players are there.
What you have to look at and think about, look at it this way, these are the guys that knew Michael was worth more dead than alive. And what are they doing? All of his things that you see are being sewed and thrown into just so many different mixes, and the movie came out right away. As a matter of fact, by the time Michael passed, right away, everything was being collected. Again, I was told all the footage from the movie was collected. Everybody, the doors were locked. It says no.
Making a movie, right? We have to
because this is a part of a premeditation. Everything was premeditated.
Well, we're going to find out.
I was told, the coroner came and he said that whoever did this intentionally. Michael had enough propofol in him, he said, to kill an elephant. It was a conspiracy, and a lot of people were involved in this, and they know who they are. And they're very afraid of what I might say, of what my brother has told me.
Was he used in your mind, Dr. Murray, I'm speaking of, as the sort of hitman in terms of this conspiracy?
I think, honestly, in my total belief is that Dr. Murray was just the fall guy simply because he knew what was going on. But I don't know to what extent.
People saying Michael Jackson was murdered. There are people saying he was corporately murdered. It's a big thing about corporate.
There are reports out right now, right, that Michael Jackson passed away with up to $400 million in debt.
Now that Michael Jackson is dead, one of the big questions out there is what about all of his riches? And obviously what's happened in the last few years is that much of Michael Jackson's wealth has possibly disappeared.
What is your financial situation?
I'm in an incredible financial situation. I just wrote somebody a check for $500 million. But when good news doesn't sell, if it's something negative and that's a rumor, that's when it's blasted. I don't expect the press to say anything good, you know.
Well, I hear one of your dreams is to do directing. Tell me, what are some of the other things you want to do in your career?
Films. I'm going to make their own motion pictures, and I have a movie coming up I'm directing, and, you know.
Michael Jackson is planning a new world tour that will largely be in Europe and Asia.
The rehearsal footage was made into an epic blockbuster movie, and of course so many of us saw it. It's This Is It, released by Columbia Pictures.
You ever want to know what a dream coming true felt like? There you go.
Get ready for the journey.
I have to ask you about something that perplexed me when I sat down and went into a movie theater and watched this film. Okay, we know that Michael Jackson died with a drug cocktail in his body that was strong enough to knock over a horse. And yet, watching this movie, I was astounded at how coordinated this 50-year-old man was, how lucid, how together. I just couldn't match those two images of the drugs found in his system and all the stuff that we're seeing right here. I can't figure it out.
But when good news doesn't sell, if it's something negative and that's a rumor, that's when it's blasted.
The tragedy is how Michael was portrayed, and I must respectfully say to the media, you as a media person, Mr. King as a media person, all of the people that are in media, if the sins of any of those who are before the world were exposed, you would lose your magnetism.
And it's so funny because I was speaking to my mother last night and we were both crying. And I said, Mother, she goes, honey, I just can't believe he's not with us. I said, I know, Mother, isn't it difficult? And she said, I just can't believe it. So I like to think that he's still here. And he is.
Michael.
Story.